Good evening, Your Excellencies, Deans and honoured guests. I am Camilla Hellman, Executive Director of the Foreign Press Association Scholarship Fund, and I would like to welcome you to the 22nd Annual Foreign Press Association Scholarship Awards. This evening we will recognise 4 exceptionally talented international graduate students, young journalists who are already demonstrating through their accomplishments to date the role they will be playing in the field of journalism in the future. And I would now like to ask David Michaels, President of the Foreign Press Association and the Foreign Press Association Scholarship Fund, to say a few words. David.
Good evening, all. It must be something I've been drinking. Side effect. It was good stuff.
$1 goes a long way.
Yes. Anyway, thank you, Camilla. Welcome, and thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate the achievements of our Scholarship Award winners. The Foreign Press Association Scholarship Fund was established in 1993 on the 75th anniversary of the Foreign Press Association and has been contributing to the development of the next generation of international reporters for more than 2 decades. During that time, we have helped 75 journalism students complete their studies, launch and build on their journalistic careers. Tonight, another 4 names will be added to the FBA Scholarship alumni. Our ability to offer these scholarships is thanks to the many companies, media organizations, and individuals who have provided their financial and other support through the years. This year, I want to particularly thank our lead sponsors, Bloomberg, Daimler, PR Newswire, and UPS for their ongoing support. I also want to recognize the many other supporters of the Scholarship Fund whose past contributions support these scholarships. As you may be aware, the Foreign Press Association was founded in 1918. And no, I was not one of the founders. We are closing in on our 100th birthday. Birthdays are a time for reflection. 100th birthdays especially so. With members from more than 50 countries, the FBA offers orientation and networking opportunities, newsmaking and educational events, and a growing range of services and benefits that support international reporters in the USA. This is core to what we do, but in addition, we are focused on building for the future with the launch of our new student and scholarship alumni programs, along with the restructuring of the Foreign Press Association to meet the realities of today's media industry. There's no doubt that international journalism faces exceptional opportunities and challenges. Sharing information and perspective from around the world has never been easier, while media organizations' budgets for international reporting have in recent years never been tighter. In an interconnected world, international issues and stories have never been more important, and the role of the international journalists to help people make sense of the world is as relevant today as it was 100 years ago. In this context, we believe that the Foreign Press Association has an important role supporting the foreign press in the United States, along with future international journalists through our Scholarship Fund Awards. As you listen to the stories of the young journalists we are honouring tonight, and the remarks of Dean Sotomayor of Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism, I ask you to think about the role of international journalism and how you can help us support these young journalists who will do so much to bring clarity and insight to a very complex world. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to join me in thanking our Scholarship Award judges, Nancy Camel, Elaine Walsh, Laura Thompson, and Simon Locke. A special thank you to Camilla Hellman, Executive Director of the FBA Scholarship Fund, for planning and organizing tonight's event, and Tony Morenzi, Executive Director of the Foreign Press Association, for his additional support. Last but not least, an extra, very special and personal thank you to Simon Locke, our Vice President, who has shouldered additional responsibilities during the last 6 months due to some health issues of both my wife Teresita and myself. Thank you, Simon. I am very pleased to inform you that this rather challenging time for Teresita and myself is over, and that I'm also making rapid recovery from heart surgery I had just 3 weeks ago. You will also be pleased to learn that an additional benefit from my surgery is that the 5-hour-plus procedure was recorded on video. Therefore, I now have irrefutable evidence that, contrary to popular belief, I do in fact actually have a heart. It now gives me pleasure to invite Dean Ernest Sotomayor, do that well in Spanish, don't I? Dean of the Student Affairs at Columbia University Journalism School, to present some brief remarks prior to the Scholarship Awards presentations. Again, thank you all for joining us. Dean Sotomayor, please.
Thank you very much. If I had known that I was going to have to follow David, I would have said I was out of town. I too had surgery in 1963. I have the scar to prove it, but I won't show you.
Did you recover?
I'll send you a picture, Dean. President Michaels, directors of the Foreign Press Association, and Camilla. On behalf of Columbia Journalism School and all of the students here tonight, and in the past years, I want to say thank you for the enormous support that has helped so many advance their pursuits in journalism. The Foundation's scholarships are highly prized, they're highly appreciated, and they go a long way toward making possible the work of so many international journalists today. Now, a 30-second history lesson about Columbia Journalism School. Joseph Pulitzer was a Hungarian immigrant who came to the United States after he was recruited to fight in the Civil War, for pay, in the Union Army. The many turns in his life led him to a career as a revolutionary newsman in St. Louis, and eventually to the ownership of the New York World, 2 newspapers that established footholds in international reporting for many years. A year after his death, Columbia Journalism School was founded 112 years ago, with an endowment that Pulitzer had left years earlier. He also led, personally, the fundraising efforts to pay for the pedestal upon which the Statue of Liberty was placed. So when we speak at Columbia about international journalism, it is an understatement to say that international journalism is part of our DNA. When I came to Columbia in 2005, about one a quarter of our students were from abroad. In yesterday's graduating class, almost 40% of our students were international scholars, 40 countries in all. They come to us from virtually every continent over the years, from tiny villages, from large metropolitan areas, from every profession you could possibly think of, some with life experiences you would never want to imagine, from every media platform, some with literally no journalism in their background, but they come with the passion to tell a story, and they do it well in the end. In our school, we help them build on those life experiences and those past lives to be good storytellers and to return to their countries to practice the craft of journalism. But while they are at Columbia with us, they become so much more than just students. They come to our school almost as instructors. They sit next to people from another continent, from another country. They're sharing cultures, perspectives, languages. They're sharing values. Now, imagine this. In one classroom, a row of seats, a student from Kenya, seated next to someone from Germany, seated next to someone from Minnesota, Finland, India, California, Argentina, Italy, New York, Australia, Denmark, the Philippines, then New Jersey. I didn't make that up. It was an actual class, and I read their names yesterday in that order. And it's typical in our school. It's typical in a lot of schools, but it's typical particularly in ours. Many of our students speak multiple languages, and they use that in their careers in many, many ways. 2 years ago, from this podium, I introduced the top winner of this prize, and I did so in Kim Wall from Denmark in the 9 languages that she spoke. Tonight's winner, one of them, Janos Delker, speaks his native German, as well as English, Spanish, and French. The international focus is not isolated to the journalism school, of course. For generations, Columbia has really been quite an amalgam of very diverse thought leaders and scholars who come from every corner of the world, across every discipline. The last 4 years, we've launched 8 global centers in 8 countries as part of our Columbia Goes Global initiative. And journalism is right in the middle of that. In fact, global free expression is explicitly declared as one of our 6 pillars upon which we set the journalism school. I was appointed earlier this year to be the director of Latin American initiatives, and I traveled to 5 different countries to increase our footprint in that continent. I leave on Sunday morning to Columbia to make a number of visits, and I'll be back to 6 or 7 more countries before the end of the year. But it doesn't end there. We have other professors who are already on their way to places like Italy and China and the Philippines and Turkey, the Sudan, Pakistan, Georgia, and many others. Those are all nations where our graduates are now working, but there were too many scattered other countries to name tonight. What our students take with them into journalism is a new and a better understanding of other cultures and histories. And when they write, hopefully they will bring to readers a perspective that no one else can bring. This profession, unlike what many believed when Pulitzer gave his money to found our school, a decade before it actually opened the doors, this is a profession. It is something that requires skill, and it's becoming more complex every day. We steep our students in the skill of reporting on the day they arrive, but it's much more than that if we want them to be the watchdogs that are so crucial and we desperately need abroad. They need to understand how to find and to use data, to use computational science to do that, how to engage increasingly savvy and very well-connected readers and audiences, even in third world environments. They all have cell phones, they all have their PDAs, they're getting information in different ways, and we need to know how they do that and how we can reach out to them and make them reporting resources for us. And to understand that our world is a much smaller place where global connections take stories across borders like they never have before. Many return home to change journalism, to make it better, more insightful, more impactful, more responsible, and making ruling powers more accountable and open to the people. It's really what it's about for us in international journalism and anywhere else, accountability. And that is what we hope that journalists like Tusha Mittal and Hannah Cassis and Janos Delker and Maria Sanchez-Diaz will accomplish. The fight for press freedom will be better for it. I congratulate tonight's winners. Those from the past and those in the future will be greater for it. but also the Foreign Press Association for providing them with all the support and the inspiration that they need to be great storytellers. Thank you so very much.
Dean Sotomayor, thank you for your enlightening remarks. I recently joined the FPA as I served as Executive Director of the Scholarship Fund to grow upon a legacy established over the past 21 years. As previously mentioned, the Scholarship Fund has presented 75 scholarships since its formation in 1993. And I'm delighted to announce that we will now have a Scholarship Alumni Committee who will be working with me to bring our past Scholarship Award winners together. As David said, networking and sharing thoughts and ideas is a key objective of the Foreign Press Association. We are working more closely with the universities and the students, developing the student membership and future international journalists. This evening, we are here to recognise and present an additional 4 scholarships to exceptional journalism students. Before we present the awards, I also would like to acknowledge the judging panel. In addition to judging the submissions, is providing guidance in developing the scholarship awards for the future. This is greatly appreciated, and I look forward to working with them. Thank you. Applicants for this year's scholarship awards were international graduate students studying at schools across the United States and who submitted an OPED in answer to the following question. Certain action taken by police officers and the related protests in the United States have been the subject of a high-profile media attention in the past months. Little is published about the positive results that major cities' police departments are able to achieve. What are your views on how the media has covered recent stories and your thoughts on the lessons for reporters both in the USA and your home country? And now, David, we will begin the awards. Tonight, we're awarding 2 third-place scholarships. Our first third-place scholarship award recipient is Tusha Mittal, who has just completed her Master's in Political Journalism at Columbia University. Originally from India, Tusha is an investigative journalist covering politics, development, and national security. Her work has documented India's underbelly by reporting on many human rights violations. At Columbia University, she's been working on a project tracking global migration to the Gulf. Dean Sotomayor, may I ask you to offer remarks?
Thank you once again. As you heard, Tusha Mittal is from Calcutta with her family here, very proudly. Yesterday graduated from our Master of Arts in Politics seminar at Columbia University. It's an extraordinary program, and I'll describe it very quickly because it is for people just like her and our other winner, Janosch, for people who have experience, who are established reporters, who are not coming to learn the basics, but to come and learn a subject and understand it very deeply to be able to write about it with great authority. She had worked for 5 years previously before coming to Columbia. She was a journalist fellow at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at Oxford. And at Columbia, her master's thesis was on modern-day slavery in Abu Dhabi, one of the world's richest cities. She also was a documentary filmmaker for the independent film called In the Name of Mao, on the human cost of India's war with the Maoist rebels. Now, in her essay, and I really hope that all of you get a chance to read the op-ed pieces that they wrote because they were really great from all of the winners. Part of the focus of the op-ed was an evaluation of how news media uses social media channels to disseminate information about people who are killed by police. And here's a very short excerpt, what she wrote, quote, "While it might be journalism's role to ask the larger uncomfortable questions, the media has more often been reactive, following an agenda set on social media by what happens to become a trend rather than guided by journalistic inquiry. Perhaps that is why the police killings of other minorities, black women, or Latinos are yet to find the same media attention as the killing of black men finally has. The second fallout of social media-driven agenda is the question of which questions get salience. The recent killings have legitimately focused attention on the persistence of race in American life. What has been missing, however, are similar debates on process of policing itself, on the culture of impunity, the lack of oversight, the role of guns, and wider police reform. As you can see, was quite thoughtful. Congratulations.
And the press photographs with
Both of you hold the envelope together. Can you turn it so I can see?
Can I take it back?
Can I see a name? Is there a name on it? Ah, voila. Two seconds. Here we go. And one more. That's it. Wait.
Un momento.
Here we go.
Pon nada.
Thank you, Dean Sotomayor, for those remarks, and thank you so much to the Foreign Press Association and to the judges for deeming me worthy of this scholarship. It means a lot. Before coming to Columbia, I was reporting from parts of India where I often felt like a foreign correspondent in my own country. There were parts in the central parts of India with remote jungles where a war is still going on between the Maoist rebels and Indian security forces. And I hope to use the scholarship to continue reporting on that, and specifically reporting the stories of women that are trapped in the conflict zone. As all of you know, in 2012, after a brutal gang rape in New Delhi, it shifted India's gender discourse. And there has been a lot of coverage on rape of women in India. But what remains undercovered are the stories of women raped in far-flung conflict zones, and often by men in uniform, often by the armed forces. And I, as a journalist, think of my role as holding power to account. And I feel that the stories of women who have been raped by the armed forces do not come out in national media. And part of that is because of how the conflict is framed. The Indian government frames the conflict as a national security threat. It calls it India's gravest national security threat. But those who know it more intimately think of it as India's hidden civil war. And I think of my job as sort of finding the truth somewhere in the middle of that. But because the mainstream media has tended to be more patriotic in covering the Maoist insurgency, the stories of rape that happen in those conflict zones have yet to become a focus of national or international discourse. And I've been privileged to be able to come across some of those stories in my reporting, but it has been difficult because those areas are hostile and journalists are forbidden from entering. The areas are cordoned off, and very often, as I mentioned, mainstream media self-censors. So I'm hoping to be able to use some of that, to use the scholarship to return to India and report on a project specifically documenting the stories of women in the conflict zone. Thank you.
Our second third place recipient is Hannah Cassis, who is currently a graduate student at the University of California, Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism, long-form TV and documentary program. Hannah is an experienced TV broadcast journalist who has reported on air for Press TV in the West Bank, covering politics, economics, arts, military raids, clashes and demonstrations. And now, may I ask Nancy Kamel, a member of the FPA judging panel, to offer remarks.
Thank you and welcome to you all. In listening to the very articulate presentations that came before me, I realized that we have some of the same information. So I am going to go back to one of my early theories that my presentation should be like a woman's skirt, short enough to be exciting, but long enough to cover all of the necessary parts. So The Foreign Press Association began its scholarship awards in 1993, making this its 22nd year. I've been fortunate enough to serve on the board of directors of the Scholarship Fund for 21 of those years. This year I had the added pleasure of being one of the judges. I am Nancy Prager-Camel, the U.S. National Commissioner for UNESCO, the UN main representative of Vital Voices, which was the largest NGO for women at the UN, and I run a company. I'm managing partner at Strategic Expansion Solutions, which is an international business that provides private initiatives for both governments and corporations. The words and a voice come together in a very fortunate few. We're here tonight to celebrate those who are being recognized as being very superior in this domain. Certainly our audience, by the very fact that you are here with us tonight to celebrate the recipients, know of the good work of the FPA. Let me take 1 minute to introduce you to the other judges who share the often very difficult work to analyze and to judge and to come up with a very small, limited amount of superior winners. Simon Erskine-Locke, if you could stand up somewhere. Thank you, Simon. Simon is the Vice President of the Foreign Press Association. He's a journalist and a partner with strategic communication consultancy, Cattell, Locke, Pendleton, and Partners. Elaine Walsh, would you stand, please? Thank you. Elaine is an associate professor in the Department of Urban Affairs and Planning at CUNY Hunter College. At Hunter, she also serves as the director of the Public Service Scholar Program. She began her affiliation with the Foreign Press Association in 2014, when she assigned a group of students in the department's graduate program to work with the foreign press to help develop a future strategic plan. We thank you very much. Laura Thompson. There you are, right. Laura is a global marketing communication professional and business writer with leading companies in the financial services, legal, hospitality, and non-for-profit industries. She also is a freelance journalist, author, and poet. Since 2000, she has been a member of the Foreign Press Association and continues to be a member of the Scholarship Award Committee. I'm not going to tell you the challenge question because you've heard it tonight, so just to remind you that the answers came from diverse multitude of different countries, and what made it so interesting to read was the juxtaposition and the analysis vis-a-vis the different cultures and the different politics and the different communities. It is with considered pride and pleasure that I am able to introduce our third place winner, Anna Assis. Anna comes from Palestine.
I'm truly humbled to be here. I'd like to thank the Foreign Press Association for this award. I'd also like to thank the faculty, lecturers, staff, and fellow students at UC Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism, as well as my family, friends, countrymen, and women. It's a real honor for me as a Palestinian journalist to receive this award. I'm used to reporting on conflict, so I was thrilled to finally receive some good news for a change. I want to thank the members, corporate sponsors, and media agencies whose contributions to the FPA Scholarship Fund made it possible for me and other students to succeed in our higher education and pursuing our passion as journalists. Journalism is a tough job, and for Arab journalists, our little corner of the world is burning, and the job is only getting tougher as press freedoms and access to movement become more dangerous and restricted. In closing, I would like to just take a moment to remember the journalists who have lost their lives covering the war in Syria, as well as Gaza, as well as those killed or imprisoned while reporting in Egypt and Libya. As a collective, the FPA is always at the forefront of pressing host governments to respect and protect journalists, and there is no greater organization operational worldwide for a journalist to receive an award from. So thanks again for all of you for your support to the FPA, and a huge thanks from myself and from journalists in my region to the FPA for doing what they do. Thanks again.
Thank you. Our second place scholarship award recipient is Janos Delka from Berlin, and currently an ERP Fellow, MA candidate at Columbia Journalism School in their MA Politics program. He has worked as a staff reporter for Spiegel Online, Deutsche Welle, and has contributed to the New York Times, ZDF, and the European Voice of The Economist. Last year, Janos released the documentary The Hidden, about hidden homelessness in the European Union. His 2010-11 online video series, Urban Observations, was awarded with the Mullett Award for Mutual Understanding by the German Fulbright alumni. And now, may I ask Dean Sotomayor to offer remarks.
Thank you. I don't have a skirt, but I'll try to keep this short as well. As you heard, Janos is a citizen of Germany, and like Tusha, graduated yesterday, just moments apart. They were classmates in the same Master of Arts seminar. So they were lucky to be classmates throughout the year. The focus of his study for much of the year was terrorism and counterculturalism, international politics, and data journalism. He wrote his master's thesis, which is in our school a 10,000-word magazine article, on a riot at a private prison in Mississippi and the lack of regulation and monitoring of private prisons in the U.S., an issue that has become very important for him. You heard about the companies that he's worked with, and he has reported on many different kinds of topics, including fracking, incoming inequality, labor relations, and labor rights. That all served him very well as he wrote this essay. He submitted a very thoughtful perspective about the problems in confronting unlawful use of force by police officers against people, particularly against people with mental disorders. And here is what he wrote in just one section. In both the United States and in Germany, there exists the unwritten rule of a blue wall of silence. Many police officers do not report on a colleague's misconduct, and they certainly do not like to talk to reporters. This should be no obstacle. Investigative journalists are faced with walls every day. It's part of their job to break through them, but it takes time. It means building up bonds of trust, going to lunch and drinks with police officers, becoming a part of their world and understanding their world and mindset. When it comes to misconduct against the mentally ill, there has apparently been no outlet that was willing to assign a reporter to that beat. Newsrooms have begun to devote large resources on investigating racially motivated police brutality. That was long overdue. Now it's time to invest similar resources into investigating police brutality against people with psychiatric disorders. Congratulations, Janos.
Thank you. One more, gentlemen. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I feel truly honored to receive this Foreign Press Association Scholarship Award. As a political journalist, I report about domestic and international politics. And when I say politics, I don't mean only what's considered hard news from the political centers on Capitol Hill in Berlin, Brussels, or other capitals of the world. I'm very interested in that, but I believe at the same time there has to be political journalism that explains how politics, policy, and public opinion shape the life of all of us. We live in a globalized world. Our life is influenced by global finance, migration, trade, diplomacy, and international politics. All these things are well known, and it almost sounds like a commonplace to mention them. And still, it's astonishing how few stories are actually done about what's behind this global economy. It is hard to find political reporting that asks questions like, what are the competing interest groups behind those global trends? What's the correlation of forces, if you will, that affects all of us? Too much political journalism is written from the desk, and I believe it takes more shoe leather kind of political reporting, reporters who go out into the field in order to understand how politics actually play out in real life. That takes time, it takes research, it takes stamina. You have to dig into data and you have to get documents, information you're not supposed to have. And I believe there's a need for this sort of journalism out there. There's an audience that would be willing to pay for it. I'm convinced of that. And I believe there are newsrooms and outlets which are willing to invest in this sort of journalism, which is time-consuming and it's expensive. It's been exactly 10 years since I did my first journalism internship. And now a couple of degrees and internships later, and after working as a staff reporter for a couple of years, I feel I have the experience and the necessary tools to report these kind of stories. And I'm very grateful to my alma mater, the Columbia School of Journalism, represented here by Dean Sotomayor, that helped me incredibly to hone my craft, to become a better and more thorough reporter, and to understand so much more about politics. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Foreign Press Association. I'm happy, grateful, and admittedly quite proud to win this award. It's a great honor to be amongst the amazing prize winners of this year. And this award will allow me to work on stories like the ones I was talking about, dig into the financial flows of the so-called global economy, go out into the field and find stories that illustrate and explain how all of this has an influence on our lives. So I can't tell you how excited I am to actually do that, and thank you very much.
And now to our first prize scholarship award recipient, Maria Sanchez, a Spanish journalist and Fulbright Fellow in the CUNY University Toe Knight Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism. She is currently developing the Fuego digital platform that provides smart and compelling stories for young Latinos in the United States. Maria has developed her career in online projects. She launched and was the digital editor-in-chief of Condé Nast Traveler Spain. The site has received 2 Silver Loewe Awards as Best European Travel Site and Best Editorial Work. In her pre-digital era, she was a reporter for El Mundo. And now may I ask Dean Bartlett to offer remarks.
Thank you. It seems only right that having heard from one of the oldest journalism schools in the country, you should also get to hear from one of the youngest. I'm representing the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, which is in its 9th year, and we are very honored to have had several winners and very excited tonight to be able to set the stage for Maria Sanchez Diaz. I remember Maria very well. Last August when she arrived at the school, we had a sort of open house for our new students, and she immediately sort of found me and started peppering me with questions and essentially wanted to know whether she could abandon the sort of traditional path of the curriculum and focus in on entrepreneurial journalism. And one of the beauties of being a new and sort of somewhat experimental school is that we can break the rules from time to time. And Maria convinced us very quickly that she was one of those students who deserved that right, especially given her long experience as a journalist before she arrived. So fast forward to last night when I was in a room, our largest room at the school, which was packed to the gills. I think we exceeded the fire laws with well over 100 people there to hear the pitches of our entrepreneurial students. And Maria was one of the 20 that is now in what we call our Town Night Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism, and she will eventually be getting a degree, an MA in entrepreneurial journalism. All of our students there, of the 20, they represented 8 different countries. And Maria will, I'm sure, tell you a little bit about her project, but she's clearly a risk taker. She came to New York and to our school not knowing for sure if she could follow her path and her dream. And watching her last night up on stage, fielding questions from people who are looking, who are coming to our school to see whether the kinds of startup opportunities might be worth funding, it was great to see her up there pitching. We do more than just entrepreneurial journalism. We also have a strong international reporting program. About a quarter of our students go overseas. We have a required summer internship, and so every year we send them off to all the different continents, and they work. We're the only graduate program in the country that pays our students $3,000 every summer for that internship if their internship is unpaid. So it really levels the playing field for our students who get to have that essential international experience, which no one but this audience would certainly appreciate. So it is my pleasure to welcome Maria Sanchez-Diaz up on stage. She represents everything that I think the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism is proud of: entrepreneurship, persistence, inquisitiveness, determination. So please come up.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to try to be really brief. I wanted to thank the Foreign Press Association for this award, as well as the sponsor and the faculty and the staff from CUNY Graduate School of Journalism for their support and their encouragement that they gave me to apply for this award, and the support that they show every day to international students like me. 7 years ago, I just had landed to Mexico, to a small newsroom in a rural depressed area of the center of the country. And there I had to cover for more than 1 year problems I had never encountered, like endemic poverty, illiteracy, drug, natural disasters, and the violence between, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, between drug cartels. 7 years later, when I moved to the US, I soon realized about the huge and dramatic demographic tectonic shift that this country is witnessing, with the Latino community increasing. And I realized that many people who are living in this country, especially young people, that don't have a notion of the things and the problems that their home countries have. So right now I'm developing a project that is gonna build a network of international journalists in Latin America, and they are gonna cover, hopefully for my side and with the help of this award, the problems that these countries are going through to make them more relatable to Latinos in the US. This award is gonna help me kicking off the project. And we are going to start going to Cuba and covering the digital transition that the country is going through right now, and how Cubans are trying to get free access to the internet, how they are managing to get free communications with their families in Miami and all of that. So thank you very much. This is an amazing opportunity. I've heard the speeches of my colleagues, and I think that you are doing an amazing job, and we're gonna make a difference when covering international issues. So thank you very much.
And so that concludes our awards for this evening. Thank you once again for your support of the Foreign Press Association Scholarship Awards, and please join us next door as we congratulate and meet our Foreign Press Association Scholarship Awardees for 2015. Thank you very much.